We are in a period of managed decline. A message to Elon Musk, a message to the president-elect of the United States, Donald Trump. It comes down to today for your nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. The question is, will we keep the managers of decline, or will we embrace disruptors? Brian Kilmeade, Steve Doocy, Tyrus, and Joey Jones live from the Patriot Awards. It is the Will Cain Show. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Terrestrial radio in an ever-expanding footprint of markets across this great United States of America. The boys back in New York know this. It feels like on a day-to-day basis I'm getting an email or two or five of the stations being added to the family of the Will Cain Show. So whether or not you're in Tacoma, Washington, Houston, Texas, or somewhere in upstate New York, we welcome you into the Willis Show. You can always download the show on Spotify or on Apple and listen to it whenever and however you like. By hitting subscribe on YouTube, you can set a reminder every Monday through Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, like today, where we're coming to you live from the Patriot Awards. I'm standing next to the red carpet, where in just a few hours, Jimmy Fallon will be walking through, getting his pictures taken with friends from the Patriot Awards. But right now, he's actually about 10 yards to my 9 o'clock, hosting Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon. Today, though, I will have Steve Doocy, Brian Kilmeade, Tyrus. Joey Jones is going to join us, and we're going to talk, among other things, about the critical day when it comes to the nomination of our former colleague, Pete Hegseth, to Secretary of Defense. I want to take a moment and talk to you about what I think this moment represents. Donald Trump won a re-election to President of the United States with an overwhelming mandate of 76 million voters. When he did so, I believe the people of America sent a very clear message that we will not continue down the same path of debt and decline. We will not continue down the same path of wars and attrition. That we will not continue to hire bureaucrats and managers practiced in the art of managed decline. You know, if you look across the vast majority of America in 2024, that's who's in charge. The managers of decline. And I'm not just talking about government bureaucrats. I'm not just talking about politicians. I'm talking about corporate CEOs. What we are looking at mostly is in a mature economy, an aged society. We're far removed from frontiersmen, from pioneers, from wildcatters, from risk takers. We're far removed from the founders of America. I'm not here to tell you those people don't exist. They do exist. But I do believe they're in ever shorter supply. So when you look around, perhaps at the head of your company, or who's elected to represent you in the Senate of the United States, what you largely see are two different types of people. Oh, you see the people who are practiced in the art of managed decline. You see people who know how to hold their cup out and collect water as the glacier melts, get their selfish little bit to wet their lips before the rest of us die of thirst. Or you see bureaucrats who are attempting to extend this for another generation or two, and they probably will be successful in the art of extending this one more generation or two. The second category is just pure morons. But I do believe that's the vast majority of people in charge, in government, and even in private enterprise in the United States of America. But I think the American people said no more. I truly do. You know, there was a time when this country was led by people with balls, with people with ambition, with people who believed in manifest destiny, who drove us west, who built businesses, who dug holes in the ground. There was a time when we were led by people in this country ready to go for it. Have you ever gone for it? Have you ever explored? Have you ever started a small business? Have you ever started just a startup company? Have you ever done anything where you laid it on the line? Have you felt alive? I think the American people wanted to feel alive, and they voted for that. They voted for disruption. They voted for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump gave them RFK as head of HHS. He gave them Tom Homan. He gave them Tulsi Gabbard. He gave them Kash Patel at FBI. He gave them Pete Hegseth as his nominee as Secretary of Defense. So when I sit here today and I wonder, not where they are because they are here. We still have them. They're just in far shorter supply. But I wonder where are the Elon Musks. I wonder why they've turned over their power, their mandate, why they've turned over their moment. This is a fleeting moment in history. And I wonder why they've turned this moment over to the managers of decline. Who elected Joni Ernst President of the United States? Who elected Lindsey Graham President of the United States? Who elected John Thune? Who elected John Cornyn? Who elected these people? We elected disruptors. So why did they get to say no on Matt Gaetz? Why did they get to say no on Pete Hegseth? They will turn now and say no on Tulsi Gabbard. They will turn now and say no on RFK Jr. They will turn now and say no on Sean Duffy. And I want to know why we elected disruptors. So for those few frontiersmen, those few entrepreneurs, those Elon Musks, those people who are literally and figuratively willing to fire people, we elected Donald Trump. Why? Why now is someone from the same party, who, by the way, 6 of whom voted to confirm Alejandro Mayorkas, 14 of whom voted to confirm Merrick Garland, and all but 7 Republicans voted to confirm Lloyd Austin as Secretary of Defense, today standing in the way of the disruption of Donald Trump. We are coming to you live from the Patriot Awards today in Long Island University. Coming up on today's show, we're going to have Steve Doocy, Tyrus, Joey Jones. We're talking to you not only about your nomination for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, but we're talking to you about the Patriot Awards and a few other stories in the news. But I'm now excited that he's actually landed the plane right on time to be joined by the host of the Brian Kilmeade Show on Fox News Radio. The host of Fox and Friends, Brian Kilmeade. What's up?
What's up? Well, it's a little abrupt. You might want to say welcome. I mean, what's
I
up?
don't say welcome.
All right.
Say
great to see
up.
you. It was great for you to join me right after you coming up and getting up in the morning. What is it like not seeing me much?
It's not easy. It's you're talking about on a day-to-day basis. I get it. I get you like a man dying of thirst sees an oasis in a desert. I get you in big quantities at short periods of time.
Right.
And so when I see you often, it is like
it's probably better for our relationship.
A dying man in a desert. I see the oasis. I run to the oasis.
You do.
And I say, "Let me drink." And it's usually your form of letting others drink is by sharing with them your words.
A couple of things. We could go. I'm not really sure what you said, but I think when I play it back, it'll all make sense. Because I do oftentimes play back my appearances. You don't like doing that, right? You don't.
I never do.
Yeah.
Never have.
So the one thing about One Nation, it's great to do. I'm honored to do it, but to know that I can watch it at night. Hey, you're not watching your show? I'm like, no, I'm not watching because I'm home. If I'm
watching
not doing
college
it live.
football,
or anything, because I'm never. My feeling is I never am as good as I think I am. Like I'm like,
so when you're
that
doing
show
it,
felt about good.
When you're doing a show like an athlete, you're like, I am killing it.
I don't think
I
that.
am killing it.
And like when you have a bad show, you kind of know it, but you don't think about it.
Yeah.
And then I watch back, and I'm like, why did I think that was a good show?
Hey, I've been told, would you give me some marriage advice?
In what way?
I don't know. I just heard you're really good at marriage advice. I heard it just a few moments ago in show prep. I was told, ask Brian for marriage advice.
I just say
it wasn't Allison. It wasn't your producers.
Really?
It was your bosses.
Ask me for marriage advice.
No.
Stay within yourself.
Do you want a little background?
Yeah. So I definitely need some context.
Okay. I was told that some people happened upon a conversation one time, probably at an event like this in a lobby. It was you and Tucker Carlson talking.
Remember
and
this?
And it was about marriage. And everyone was taken aback, Tucker Carlson included, at the depth and quantity of your advice on marriage.
Right. Tucker had this interesting say. Women don't need men. Early on, maybe. But after you have kids, they don't need you, so get your act together or they will leave you. That was essentially the conclusion that he gave. But personally, if I want to talk marriage or Juan Soto, I'll pick Juan Soto. Where will he land? Right. So, no, in terms of marriage advice, I don't think that anyone should be in the situation given marriage advice. Also, this thing called divorce, do you ever hear someone talk about a divorce and go, that went well? You know, that was so easy, right? Even if they say, well, no, we're going to end friends, you just, next thing is time, and whoever you're friends with always got it the worst. You know, I can't believe it. So that's kind of an interesting time. You know, people going through divorce, they're never the same.
You know, Brian, you've been really good. I really appreciate it. You actually were good in setting it up, in talking about what it takes to do what we do for a living. I don't pretend we hold jackhammers over a city street and work to our brow sweats all day long. And we're very well paid, overpaid for what we do. Not for my bosses, I'm underpaid. But for the world...
Right, they don't listen.
I'm over... That's true. Don't worry, the bosses aren't listening.
Yeah, come on.
But it's not easy to get up at, you know, whatever time. You get up earlier than I do, but to go on air at 6 a.m. day after day after day, right? And you pointed out these accusations about our colleague and our former colleague and nominee for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who you defended yesterday on Fox and Friends. It just doesn't even pass the smell test because you just simply can't be a drunk and get up at 6 a.m.
He's cut out of steel, by the way. He just is. He's in unbelievable shape. He's really disciplined, and if he'll just go, you'll see him 6 to 10 out, 4-hour show. Do you ever like Greta Van Susteren, or if you put Geraldo Rivera, they do our hours. Like when the show starts, it's game on for 4 hours. It's like a slice of life. You can't do that if you have drinking too much. You don't show discipline. You get in bed on time. You can't have 7 kids in 3 locations, have the organizations that he has a working farm for over years. When he's free, he's in the National Guard, showing up in Washington with riot shields. Okay? You do all that, navigating all this while keeping up with all the news, and then going, hey, Laura needs you to host a show. Jesse needs you to host a show for a week. So you do it 12 hours in between. Then Hannity needs you in the morning. Hannity needs you at 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. Let me see. If you've been drinking from 6 to 10 because you have a problem, Hannity calls, it would come out in 2 days. Hannity tried to book him, and he disappeared. You know, Will Cain had to host the show by himself. It was just him and it was just him because Pete didn't show up. It just doesn't add up. And then if you're going to go back to everyone's 20s, just like with Kavanaugh, and say that represents you, with Kavanaugh was 11th grade and his senior year in college, if you're going to go back to all that and you're going to decide, I don't think anyone should be ever judging somebody about how they live their life. I would say, what kind of person are you now, and what have you done over the last 14 years? Also, open up his books and check out his on-air. 4 hours a day, speech after speech, show after show. You're going to find something you don't want to agree with and you don't want to vote for him. Let him defend himself. Game on. But enough with the personal stuff. Name another person who had the personal stuff outside Matt Gaetz, which was a crime problem that his own party had a problem with.
Well, you asked me about 1 hour ago on the Brian Kilmeade Show, again on Fox News Radio, about Charlemagne the God's appearance on The View. I want to share now with you another clip from The View. This is about Pete Hegseth, but it's become one of my favorite parts of media criticism and media clips.
Is it today or yesterday?
It's from yesterday, okay. I believe. But it is the now solid gold viral hit of Sonny Hostin reading legal notices. Enjoy it from The View.
I see you. I see you over there.
I have a very quick statement.
Yes, it's not going to be that quick.
Pete Hegseth has denied any wrongdoing. His lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit. No charges were ever brought.
You rushed me for that? We'll be right back.
Yeah, because
Brian,
they're going to get sued.
They
keep interrupting.
And she is the one that has to do it. I think it's because she is the one who has said things. You and I know how television works. There's probably somebody in their ear, right? Or it looked like the way Whoopi Goldberg was acting, maybe somebody offset going, you've got to do this right now. They're so afraid of the irresponsibility of their talent.
Defamation.
for defamation suits, that they are actively intervening in the show in real time and making Sunny Hostin with dead eyes and a flat face read legal notices.
And that's showing her look like a hostage. And every time she's doing it on purpose, right? So I mean, I think it's fantastic. I did see it a couple of times, but I didn't know what it was related to. They're doing it on a daily basis now?
Pretty much on it's happening, I'd say, multiple times a week.
I'm telling you, nobody knows where to go with this, and it's crazy. I think they go after Trump. Now people don't want to hear it. Now you don't have any ratings. I don't know if it came across. Did you see that they just sent out something that Morning Joe's ratings are down 35%.
Is that right?
Right, 35%. Ours are up 32%.
High five, Fox and Friends.
Right, yeah. So, and we're doing the same thing. We're not changing at all. So America's coming back.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want to play you one more clip. You're familiar with this. This is, I guess, a friend of yours, Charlemagne the God on The View.
Now that Trump has won, you say that you don't think cable news will ever truly cover him honestly again. Why?
Well, not even just cable news, no network. Nobody, because they didn't do it before, so why would they do it now? They're scared to death.
What
He's the
about
president of the United States of America.
Have you watched The View?
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. Sonny, I saw you have to apologize a couple times last week, so somebody's coming with some notes from downstairs.
I'm not apologizing.
Okay.
I'm making a legal note as an attorney of law.
Because you know we have a petty president, our incoming,
Yes.
that is going to be very litigious.
Who is litigious?
Unbelievable. By the way, you got to he's perfect for Will Cain. So I'll definitely if this comes off Monday.
I told you, that's Charlemagne the
afternoon.
God on the Breakfast Club in New York City. He's made me Donkey of the Day on a couple of occasions, mostly back from when I was at ESPN. Yeah, tell him I'd love to have a conversation with him.
All right, I think he should do it. And who was he on with the other day for quite a bit of time? Oh, he was on this week with Jonathan Karl, with George Stephanopoulos. Jonathan Karl walked over there, just sat there and interviewed him on his in his studio. So I think that he's very interesting, and they're right. We don't have to change it all. They have to just cover him honestly. You don't have to say Trump is right. Just cover it, tell the story, and then add your opinion if you want. But you start every day and go, this is the worst.
Changing the DNA.
This is the worst.
That DNA can't be changed. All of those institutions have to be cleaned house. They have to be. Those people cannot change.
But at the same time, MSNBC's for sale.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. The CEO is about to resign. Did you see that? I know you know the industry better.
Brian Roberts?
You got broadcasting cable for how many years?
Comcast.
To your house.
You mean as a subscriber?
Yeah.
Or as somebody who works on broadcast television?
No, broadcasting cable. You seem to know what's going on in the industry.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you get that from broadcasting cable?
Yeah.
So the CEO of MSNBC.
Not Comcast.
About to step aside.
Right.
So we'll see.
All right, we'll see. Check out the Brian Kilmeade Show on Fox News Radio.
Don't
Check
forget
him out
One Nation
on
Saturday.
Fox and Friends, and One Nation on Saturday on the Fox News channel. Brian Kilmeade, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
You're great.
All right. So, coming up, we've got Tyrus. We've got Steve Doocy, and they're all gathering up in my green room here for the Will Cain Show. Hey, have you ever wondered what happened to legendary actor Chuck Norris? I know. I recently saw a video he made, and it was shocking. He's in his 80s. Chuck Norris is in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt, and he's working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger. He can work out longer, and he even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. And he did it just by making one change. That's what he says. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing, too, and she's never felt better. And she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Here's what Chuck did. First of all, he made a special video. That's what I saw. And that explains everything. Make sure you go watch this, by the way. It's chuckdefense.com/Cain, or by clicking the link below this video. You watch the video. It's going to change the way you think about health. It's going to give you the answer to the thing that Chuck has changed. Once again, the video is at chuckdefense.com/Cain, and click on the link in the description to watch the video right now during our commercial breaks. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than me. Is that true? He has more energy than me? I actually believe that. He has more energy than me. I think it's true. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking on the link in the description box below. It is chuckdefense.com/Cain. Steve Doocy, coming up on The Will Cain Show. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Hanging out here at the Patriot Awards at Long Island University in Long Island, New York. And walking up to hang out with me now is one of the hosts of Fox and Friends. It is Steve Doocy on the Will Cain Show.
Hello, Will. How are you?
I'm good. And right when we were coming on air, you were just telling me you and I are both at the same hotel. You went back to the hotel after Fox and Friends.
I did.
And you started watching The View.
I did. I had already stolen the soap and the little shampoos. I'm going to take them home, as you do at those Marriott hotels. And I was watching The View, and it was a lot about Joe Scarborough's ratings have gone down after he explained that he had gone and met with Donald Trump. And there was a raucous debate about whether or not that was appropriate to tell people that he actually had been there. And I am of the opinion, and I think you are too, that when you report on people with some regularity, it's always great to actually talk to them and find out what they're up to. So I get why they went, but as it turns out, there was a backlash against them for it's like, how could you do that? You normalize them, stuff like that. But if you're going to talk about somebody, you might as well go and get it from the horse's mouth.
Your co-host on Fox and Friends, Brian Kilmeade, just brought up those ratings that you did as well. So they're down 35%. And Fox and Friends, by the way, for what it's worth, is up roughly similarly in those kinds of numbers over the last month and a half.
Something like that.
And you're telling me that the View's explanation, or the debate that they rather had, was that basically liberals have turned on MSNBC because Joe and Mika went to meet with Donald Trump?
Well, it's impossible to know why people do things they do with their television, but the question was, are their ratings down because they said, hey, we went and talked to Trump?
And Steve, you know this, for years they've otherized not only Donald Trump, but anyone that disagrees with them. They've dismissed a lot of these people as Nazis or as literally Hitler. Yeah. And if you've conditioned your audience to believe something like that, then you would probably expect they might hold it against you if you had a summit or a meeting with literally Hitler.
Yeah, and see, that's the whole thing about doing a TV show, where if you and I have been places where suddenly out of nowhere, walking around the corner is a guy you have talked about, and maybe not in the most friendly way, coming right at you. And you're wondering, how's this going to go? Should I say hello? Okay, we've just locked eyes. Is he going to say hello to me? I am reminded of a time a couple of years ago. I went to the world premiere of Anchorman 2. And my daughter Mary and I were at the theater. Oh, it was the after party. And so we're standing there. I'm talking to Paul Rudd, University of Kansas. And right over there, Mary goes like this, Dad, there's that guy. And I look at that guy, and it's like, okay, I have no idea who that is. She goes, Dad, that's the guy who plays you on Saturday Night Live. I said, are you sure? She said, absolutely. I said, okay, let's go over. What's his name? And she told me his name, Terrence.
Who was it? What's his name?
Terrence Kellum.
Okay.
And I said, I walked right up to him. He saw me walking toward him. And I said, listen, Darren, Steve Doocy, very nice to meet you. He goes, you're not going to punch me? And it's like, no, I'm not. You're like 35 years old, and you're playing a 59-year-old man. It's awesome.
Well, in that situation, Steve, you're the subject in that interaction. And I respect what you did walking up to him. I do think that's interesting what you said about, in this industry, what we do is we talk hopefully honestly and difficultly about people, and then that presents the option in the future that we may actually meet them in person.
Right.
And I've done that now in sports and in politics.
Right.
And for me, I've just committed to, I'm going to do that. And by the way, I'm not afraid of the moment that we meet in person. It's not going to be ugly on my part, and you get to choose when it'll be ugly on your part. But what is an example of that, if you can think of one off the top of your head, where somebody now met you in person after you had critical words?
There are members of Congress who I have met in Washington at like White House Correspondents' Dinner, or I've got a couple of kids who work in government and a kid who works at the White House. And so I've seen some of these people in person, and they got a bone to pick. It's like, I don't like your coverage. And it's like, well, which part was inaccurate? It's like, well, just the way. It's like, I will stand by facts. You know, did I give a wrong fact? Well, you know, the way you presented it. It's like, well, okay. You might not like the presentation, but was I inaccurate? And it's never, no. I just didn't like the way you did it.
Right.
And first of all, anybody who does that has a lot of chutzpah, just to come up and say, hey, I got a complaint. But 99% of the time, it's like, even though, and I will say this method has happened more than the others, there will be people who we've talked about on TV, and it's like, okay, they know I talk about them, they talk about me, and just say hello. And that's about it. The last thing you want to do is, if you are critical of somebody and then you meet them in person, you don't want to just go up and throw your arm around them and say, act like you're best friends. It's like, hey, I talk about you all the time. Yeah, I know you do. I'm quite familiar.
I sort of respect that move, though. Yeah, I did talk ugly about you. How's it going?
Right. I get that. And it's because there have been times where people from other channels, I will see them at, we get together once a year for different media events, and I'll see somebody, and we'll lock eyes, and I will walk toward the person, and they will walk away because they are uncomfortable, that they don't want to talk to me because they have said mean things.
You know, Steve, you and I,
mean tweets,
2 years ago at the Patriot Awards, sat down and had dinner together.
We did, and I was just now thinking about those 2 glasses of red wine we had. They were delicious, and the company bought. Thanks.
And, I really appreciated that evening. I did. And you and I sat down that night, and we talked about your career, your experience on Fox and Friends, my relatively new career at Fox and Friends, not in the media, but at Fox and Friends. We shared stories, and I really do mean it. That was a cherished moment for me. We're sitting in a room, and there was a lot of different people from our business we could sit and talk to, and somehow we ended up together that night.
We did.
So that was a nice moment.
For dinner. We
for
should
dinner.
Point out, you said we wound up together that night. We wound up together that night.
I didn't mean to
for
imply
dinner.
more.
It was
than
dinner.
The 2 glasses of wine. But it was for dinner. And then we were ultimately joined by our boss, Gavin Haddon, and we all had a conversation together. And I think some producers like A.J. Hall joined us as well. It was a fun night. But you shared stories about your career. So I would ask you this because I am someone, and you've gotten to know me somewhat, I'm passionate, and I am also authentic. So what I'm saying, I believe, and I will say it with my full chest.
Yep.
And so I will do so. And we were talking about Fox Friends, but even though I'm like that, I also want to be fair. I'd really try to be fair. I try to be self-reflective. Right. I do think self-awareness is really important.
Absolutely.
So I try to have that. I probably don't succeed all the time. The point
but you try.
I'm leading.
That's the important part.
I'm leading towards is we're talking about MSNBC. So now I'd like you to include in Self-Awareness Fox, kind of revisit that conversation that we had. I am sitting here talking about the way media has changed, and I'm seeing it through the lens of MSNBC. And I think they're in full-on insanity. And for that matter, so is The View. And it may be entertaining, but it's full-on insanity. But everybody's changed, I would imagine. You've been doing this. Right. You've been doing Fox and Friends for how many years?
28 and something.
28?
Yeah.
What do you see at large about the media that's changed the most in your 28 years?
Well, will I remember? Well, it was all in black and white back then. When we first got started, Fox News was not the Fox News that it is now. It was a continuation of an idea that the boss had just about, okay, go out there and present opinions that you don't get on the other channels. And that's where Fox came from. And it took a couple of years, but we figured out the secret sauce. I think the number one thing that a lot of people don't get these days is with opinion journalists, they're giving their opinion. And it's their opinion, and they can have that. And that's the beauty of the First Amendment. But it's like, okay, everybody's got a different opinion. And that's why I think sometimes people, you listen to one channel and you hear one thing, you listen to another channel, you hear something completely different, and you're just mixed up. It's like, how can they be saying black and these people are saying blue? And so I think the confusion has led to polarization, to people being in silos, people picking favorites in everything. And it comes about the same time where if you think about what's happened over the last 20, 30 years, big institutions now are, you look at the opinion polls, big institutions, whether it's church or government or the courts, they're tanking in the polls.
Or media.
Or media, absolutely. They're catching up to us. it's because people don't trust those things, just as they don't trust a channel if it's not what seems true to them.
And you know, my answer to that, Steve, and you're absolutely right, that people live in alternate realities. And if you watched your news on one channel versus another channel, you would have totally different opinions or even perceptions of reality about the world. And my answer to that has been this, Steve. It's like the only thing that you can offer the audience is more information, more transparency, more information. And a lot of that is going to be bad. It's just the nature of the game. And the best we can do is what I tried to do this morning. Like this morning on Fox and Friends, we were together.
You were good.
And I was asked about Pete. And I've always done this and said this since day one at ESPN. I need to acknowledge to you that I am biased. I need the audience to know that. I can't give you the pretense of objectivity because then I've started our relationship with a lie. So to start our relationship on the truth, you listening at home need to know that I am biased. Now you can listen to me through the lens of that honesty. And that's how I approach this. More information, more transparency, more honesty. And included in that is, hey, I have opinions. I have a worldview. I have an upbringing. And the truth is, so does everybody.
Right, exactly.
And so let me lay it out front. You decide.
I think, and the way you did it today was absolutely perfect. And the thing about Fox is, and you know this from having been on for years now, is that over the course of years, you know, every time we do a show, we reveal a little something about our personal lives or our points of view. And it's like somebody's putting together, if you're watching at home, every day they can put together another little piece of the Will Cain mosaic. Okay, he lives in Texas. He loves to hunt. He's got 2 boys. They do this, they do that. And over a course of years, they become familiar with you or me or the people they watch on TV because they know where any bias is. You don't even have to say you're biased because that's the tile right there. Right? And they appreciate that. Nobody is going to line up perfectly with either one of us. It's like, okay, I like 99% of him. But that one thing bugs me, but it's worth the price of admission because I realize, okay, he and I, we have different opinions on Kosovo or something. Whereas in the long range of things, I think the more people are able to watch people on TV who they appreciate but don't necessarily agree with, the better informed a person is. Because if you watch everything, and we all do, you just have a better idea where everybody's coming from. And so everybody, in the back of your mind, you get the little mosaic of everybody who's watching.
Well, Steve Doocy, it's been a pleasure talking today. And as I mentioned, 2 years ago, we had drinks and dinner and nothing more.
That's
at
it.
the Patriot Awards. And I look forward to seeing you tonight. I want to say as well, thank you. You had to come back from your hotel like I did to come over here and do the Will Cain show.
Thank you, Will.
I would like to go ahead and get my bid in now. I want to talk to you again soon on a little longer conversation about some of this stuff.
I'd love to.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Will.
All right, Steve Doocy, the host of Fox and Friends here on the Will Cain show. Coming up, Joey Jones and Tyrus. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in the Will Cain show. You guys have seen this video. I don't know if you've seen this video going around of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare murdered, assassinated, hitman job on the streets of New York City. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com. Fox News YouTube, Fox News Facebook. Hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify. And if you're over on X, I hope you'll join us. I've had a vigorous campaign I've been mounting in defense of my friend and former co-host at Fox and Friends, Pete Hegseth. But while you're there, you can also see this video that I'm talking about of this UnitedHealthcare CEO murdered on the streets of Manhattan. I'm joined now by Joey Jones. That is a good-looking poncho shirt.
You like this? This is a Texas shirt, man.
I was wearing a poncho shirt yesterday. This is denim. I'm a fan of denim.
Yeah, they came out with
And I like that
got some
color.
colors. Yeah. I'm not big on, like, if Joey's wearing it, it's probably like blue or gray.
That's
like
what
it's
I'm.
kind of
I'll do
live.
like a dark green. What do we
This
call
is out-
that? Is that
it's
teal?
Sage, right?
Sage.
Sage? I mean, I don't know. It's the best I can come up. Like, I know.
I really like it. Have you seen that video of this CEO of UnitedHealthcare being murdered on the streets of Manhattan?
I have, yeah.
So I actually wanted to bring it up with you because you're somebody, not that you're an assassin or a hired hitman, but you know something about war
Firearms.
and you know something about firearms. I'm just curious, when you see that video, What are your thoughts? What's your takeaway?
I think it's a lot like the Trump assassination attempt. You're not going to stop having theories put out there and justified in 10 different ways based on what little bit of information they have. When I see that video, I see a guy pull out a pistol. It looks like it has a suppressor on it. And whatever ammo he's using or whatever suppressor setup he has won't cycle the gun for him. So he shoots and the gun won't eject the old round and put a new one in. So he has to do it himself. Doesn't look like he planned on that happening. So that tells me he didn't even shoot the setup that he brought before that moment. He gets one shot center mass in the back. The next shot's down on the leg. So his marksmanship isn't there. Everyone's immediate reaction was he was so calm. It's like, well, you know, normally rational people don't kill people for any reason. So being calm doesn't make you a professional assassin. It may be true that that person was paid to do that, but it's not like this is, you know, in my opinion, it's not like this is someone who's done it before.
And so you're talking not necessarily a professional hitman level of competency, but also a cold-blooded assassination, not a moment of passion type of crime. So if I connect those two dots, I don't know what I'm leaning towards, but I'm leaning towards somebody who planned to do something but maybe had not done that type of thing before.
That's what when I look at it, that's what I see. There's one person, and you know, the reports, Lord help, what's true and what isn't, but there's one report that he was seen there basically all night waiting. And so it looks to me like he knew what he was there to do and he wanted to do it, but he probably didn't know what it was going to look like until it happened. I mean, it's terrible. It's an evil thing to do. I think that leaving spent shell casings and unfired rounds there, because every time he cycled it, he'd cycle a fresh round out to put the next one back in. It's called a double feed or a misfeed. It just shows you he didn't have any type of like real experience or proficiency with the gun he was using. And, you know, someone who's planned this out, ready to do it for a while, probably has shot that weapon somewhere.
Joey Jones, Fox and Friends Weekend and Fox and Friends Weekday guest host with me here on the Will Cain Show. So I mentioned on X I've been mounting a vigorous defense of Pete Hegseth, meaning telling the truth.
Yeah.
That is basically what I tell people who say, hey, Will, you know, we appreciate what you're doing when it comes to Pete. I say, well, I don't feel like I'm doing anything heavy. It's not a big lift, and it's not special. Because I'm talking about a friend, I have firsthand knowledge, and I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
To me, that's what's done by men. Other men have stepped up. Dan Bongino has done a good job as well, but I think actually one of the best arguments I saw made this week was also from you, Joey, doing what I think men do. And you compared what Pete has done to, or what is being done to Pete, to what has been done to another political figure, Donald Trump.
Yeah, so what I did, because we're in the business where we understand how people consume information. So I listed the things that they have done against Pete, and I didn't put a name with this. So look, they said he was unqualified. They used a family member against him. It's 5 or 6 things. And I said, this is not Pete Hegseth I'm talking about. This is Donald Trump. The point being, any of these senators that have gone around and campaigning with Donald Trump for the last 8 years, and I'm not saying ride his coattails, but I'm kind of saying ride his coattails, riding on the popularity, the populist movement that is Make America Great Again, America First. Any of these senators that has taken advantage of that without issue, and then like a Lindsey Graham stands in front of a camera and gives a very open-ended, non-committal, I have concerns, is an absolute hypocrite. I mean, that's all they are. They're, and I just put a tweet out. You probably had a chance to see it, but I said, look, I fought in Afghanistan. I fought in Iraq. I watched us bring in new radio systems by the billions of dollars. I watched the F-35 failure at Money Pit. I watched the Osprey debacle. I watched them justify spending so much money on this war where we were fighting guys that were taking flashlights apart and turning those into bombs. Like, that was my job, was to be better than the technology our enemy was using. And as this 20-year war went on, their technology got simpler and simpler and simpler. And what we needed to defeat it, I could buy at a Bass Pro Shop. A treble hook and some fishing line. That's what I was using to help defeat these IEDs. And so I watched the Defense Department spend so much money, so much needless money, reinventing something like a vehicle with 4 wheels and a steering wheel since the 1920s, right? Like reinventing things to spend money and feed this complex. And my point is, quite frankly, if Lindsey Graham has concerns, it may be about losing that. It may be about the fact that Pete could prove that the warfighter's will to fight is infinitely more important on the battlefield than the price of his gear. And it may be that the lobbyists who have lobbied so hard have him convinced that Pete is detrimental to that, but his concerns are not over his character. These attacks on Pete are easily proven false, easily researched. And if you're Lindsey Graham, you need to shut up and have that hearing and ask him questions about what policies he would implement, what the president wants him to do, and how he would do it. Partaking in any of these character assaults on Pete shows just what kind of people they are up there. And let me tell you something. God forbid we put a microscope on any of them. And I'm not beating up on Lindsey. He may vote for Pete and he may advocate for him behind the scenes. But just being in his position on Senate Armed Services and to stand in front of cameras and give those people any food for fodder is absolutely irresponsible, especially as someone who he considers himself to be a leader in our defense of this country.
Hear, hear. And I would add to that I don't know how any Republican could look themselves in the mirror, or much less look their voters in the eye, and say, I voted to approve of Merrick Garland as Attorney General, or Lloyd Austin,
even Lloyd Austin
as Secretary of Defense,
or Sam Britton, who's an absolute basket case, and they put him in charge of getting rid of our nuclear waste or managing our nuclear waste. I mean, the list goes on. We've got Rachel Levine, who's absolutely mentally ill, and they just gave that person, I won't misgender them, they gave that human a military uniform and said, oh, by the way, you're in the Navy now. Here you go. Here, be an admiral because you're brave, because you changed your gender during your midlife crisis. Like, I'm sorry. But if we want to go on character attacks, the right has plenty of ammo we've never used because that's not who we are.
And the problem, though, at this point is not just those Democrats who put those types of individuals in place. It's the Republicans that voted to confirm them. And now they sit here today with questions about Pete Hegseth. And I think, as Donald Trump Jr. tweeted a few moments ago, if you voted to confirm Lloyd Austin and have questions about Pete Hegseth, you might have problems with your political party. You might be in the wrong political party. You might be a Democrat.
Well, and when that showed, listen, here's the honest God's truth. A third of those senators will be there 2 years after Trump. Another third of them won't be reelected until Trump can't be reelected again. Only a third of them has to deal with the midterms that will come up during Trump's time. Their loyalty to President Trump ended the day that President Trump got elected and they held their seat. That's just the truth of every senator looks in the mirror and sees a president looking back at them. That's who they are. They're careerists. And maybe we like that. We want them to be statesmen and last a while. Maybe we don't. But this idea that they have some sort of loyalty to President Trump, the Republicans especially are incredibly, in a nice way, independent, and maybe a critical way, selfish when it comes to being in the Senate. And so there's not a lot of opportunity there to say, well, they'll jump on board. Here's what I'll tell you, though. I don't have any problem with them voting to confirm Biden's picks. You have an opportunity to sit there in the hearing and ask questions and get answers and make a vote.
But then vote for Trump's picks.
There you go. But know that you're not going to get that from Democrats, so you better be on board for the president that you just told the American people deserves to lead this country. You better be on board to let him build his cabinet.
And, Joey, I just did this as a monologue at the beginning of the Will Cain Show, but I believe we're at a fragile and unique and special moment in history where the American people embraced the idea of disruption. They embraced Elon Musk. They embraced Donald Trump. And for the Republicans who have taught us how to lose over a decade, to stand in the way of that disruption now is a real loss for a moment in history. I didn't elect Joni Ernst. I elected, as the American people, Donald Trump.
That's exactly right. And here's the deal. You know, you tell me that someone like Pete Hegseth will make our defense weaker. Are you kidding me? Look at where we are. Look at where we are. I just saw a video a couple days ago of an Air Force general talking about the merits of DEI, and in none of that did he talk about proficiency, effectiveness, lethality, unit cohesion, any of the things that I was taught, now 20 years ago that made a unit effective in combat. At the end of the day, if you look at what's happening in Israel and you look at what's happening in Ukraine and you look at what's happened against us in Afghanistan, even the modern battlefield, the people who win the battles and the wars are the ones that actually want to be there and fighting it. That's ultimately what it is. Because a good amount of snow can take out your technology. Anything can happen. This idea that we're going to spend our way into being the most heavily defended country in the world is asinine. Pete Hegseth understands that. I don't think Lindsey Graham does. And I hope, obviously Donald Trump knows it because he's hired Pete.
Are you wearing that shirt today? Is that a white flag of surrender?
Oh, you're talking about college football now. No, yes, I take pity on those that are less fortunate.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, so when you beat a team, 30-something to, 15
points.
in their own home field.
All of your drives started on the 25-yard line.
Not our fault. Not our fault. No, listen, it's hard to beat the same team twice.
It is. So Texas, Georgia this weekend, SEC championship game. By proxy, it's Will versus Joey. It is hard to beat the same team twice, and it's even harder to say what's going to happen 3 times because it should be that we meet again in the playoffs for a third meeting.
It absolutely can be. That's what's the way the bracket. There's bracketology of football now, which is insane to me. But the way it works out, there's a good chance that Georgia and Texas could meet again in the playoffs. And what does that say? That says that it's a completely different game. I think Georgia's exactly where they need to be. We're getting guys back that were healthy. We're getting guys back that were in trouble.
A little more DUIs?
Yeah, no, this one was complete false accusations. But
this one. I like how you emphasize. No, this one.
And our quarterback hasn't thrown an interception in 3 games. Now, there was like Mercer or somebody was in there, but still, he hadn't thrown an interception in 3 games. So, but, listen, Texas has spent a lot of time waiting on this opportunity, more so than Georgia in the last 10 years. And it's their first year in the SEC. I think in this game, unlike the last one, Texas probably has more want to just on paper. So it's up to Kirby Smart. Can you give one of those speeches that they have to bleep out and get them all ready?
We'll both be – are you in New York this weekend or are you in Georgia?
No, I get to be home for this one.
Okay.
I might even buy tickets to the game.
All right. Well, then I'll see you over text. We'll talk trash, Texas versus Georgia. All right, Joey Jones, always appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Okay, coming up, Tyrus. You don't want to go anywhere. We got Tyrus coming up on The Will Cain Show. Jim Dandy says on YouTube, you can tell when it's a well-run show. This here is the new media. That's right. This here is the new media, The Will Cain Show on FoxNews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. We're here every Monday through Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, live at all those same channels. But here's what you do. Understand we've got all kinds of new viewers and listeners with us today. Big numbers concurrently right now on YouTube. You can join us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock right here. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, come hang out with us. If you miss the show live, subscribe on Spotify or Apple. We're dragging Fox News into the 21st century. The Will Cain Show. Jimmy Fallon here is next to me from the Patriot Awards doing his show, Fox Across America. And I said, why are you so quiet, Jimmy? You're whispering into your microphone. I'm over here projecting, man. My voice is filling this place. And he said, because I'm a broadcasting professional, I know you don't have to yell. I said, well, I'm new. As are you. We're all new here to the Will Cain Show. Coming up in just moments, we're going to have Tyrus join us. Tyrus from Gutfeld and many other programs, both at OutKick and at Fox. But I wanted to visit this other story today while we're together that I found absolutely fascinating. It's the story of the Supreme Court of the United States. Yesterday, they heard arguments in a case regarding transgender issues. I'm always fascinated whenever there's audio coming out of the Supreme Court of the United States. I like to hear the brain, the questions, the argumentation, and you learn so much. At the outset of today's show, I gave you a monologue, and I said that we give a lot of deference to the people that run America, both in politics and in private business. Most of them are the managers of decline. A few, though, not maybe exclusively a few, many are also just morons. And I think that there are moments when you get to hear this. Let's hear these managers of decline. Let's hear these morons. And unfortunately, you can hear it in arguments before the Supreme Court. Let's start with Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson talking about transgender surgeries and puberty blockers on children.
The question was whether it was discriminatory because it applied to both races and it wasn't, necessarily invidious or whatever. But, as I read the statute here, the case here, the court starts off by saying that Virginia is now one of 16 states which prohibit and punish marriages on the basis of racial classifications. And when you look at the structure of that law, it looks in terms of, you can't do something that is inconsistent with your own characteristics. It's sort of the same thing. So it's interesting to me that we now have this different argument, and I wonder whether Virginia could have gotten away with what they did here by just making a classification argument.
So I want to help you understand, and I don't mean this to be pedantic. I don't mean to explain the obvious, but what you just heard from Ketanji Brown Jackson. The rise of systemic racism directly correlates in the United States to the Supreme Court of the United States embracing the idea of disparate impact. And that is, we don't just outlaw things that are racist on its face, but things that have racism in their application. You can look at something that is race neutral, say, I don't know, an SAT test, and say, yeah, we all agree. That's not racist, we can see. But it has a disparate impact on the numbers of black kids that fail versus white kids that fail, and reverse engineer that into the idea that it is racist. She's talking about here, disparate impact is applied first to the ban on interracial marriages in Virginia, which has been constitutionally outlawed, which is part of our history. And she's saying that the framework of those decisions and those arguments that banned interracial marriage are the same frameworks of arguments today that would submit there are two genders. This is what is being too smart for your own good. This is being too professorial for the real world. This is where you use argumentation or theory into the place where all of a sudden you can't tell the difference between male and female. And that only became more obvious, by the way, when you heard Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Watch.
I'm sorry, counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk. Even taking aspirin. There is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer a harm. So the question in my mind is not, do policymakers decide whether one person's life is more valuable than the millions of others who get relief from this treatment? The question is, can you stop one sex from the other?
There she is, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, saying, hey, all medicine has potential risk and downside. There's risk and downside to aspirin, equating aspirin's downside risk to puberty blockers and transgender children's surgery. He's already making faces and breathing deeply. Tyrus now joins me here on the Will Cain Show.
Always a pleasure. Aspirin has a need. If you have a headache, it's proven that aspirin can relieve the symptoms from that. There's not proof that this stuff relieves any symptoms. Actually, it proves it causes more problems. So, again, this is the type of liberal stuff that the country's sick of.
In the course of this case, Tyrus, that's something that came out through a line of questioning. And by the way, I don't know if this was done. We have both an example of some good lines of questioning as well by Judge Samuel Alito, where the counsel for those who are looking to expand transgender rights here admitted it does not reduce suicide rates among children.
No, that was proven. They held that information back. A lot of physicians knew this information, but because it went against their narrative, they held it back. So we're seeing that this stuff, there's not really a need for it. I mean, this would be like my 10-year-old telling me she had a bad week, so she needs a beer and a cigarette.
Yeah.
There's
no difference.
Except she didn't have to tell me about it because her teacher got her a six-pack.
From the beer and the cigarette.
Exactly.
This you don't get over.
You don't. And again, if you have a child, and one of my kids went through a phase where they were,
you told me about this.
I feel like this, that, whatever, therapy.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. And then it reverted back, and currently she feels like she's a she again. If I would have went into that line of medications and stuff like that, she worked through it herself. It's an ongoing process, like every child, and it's not always with kids about gender. It could be, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be this, I want to be that, and then it continues to change and grow and evolve. And let them do that. There's a reason why we don't let our kids get married at 8 and 9, or join the military, or buy drugs, or even go to a movie that's rated R. There's a reason for that. You need to protect them from themselves in a lot of cases.
Here is, I just mentioned a moment ago, so you can hear it for yourself directly, Justice Samuel Alito saying, let's talk about this idea that this helps children avoid the ultimate consequence of suicide.
True in every respect, but on page 195 of the Cass report it says, there is no evidence that gender affirmative treatments reduce suicide.
What I think that is referring to is there is no evidence in the studies that this treatment reduces completed suicide. And the reason for that is completed suicide, thankfully and admittedly, is rare, and we're talking about a very small population of individuals with studies that don't necessarily have completed suicides within them.
So, I think I actually heard that for the first time.
Completed
suicide.
I'm just going to go back to everything I just said previously to this. Again, we're laughing, but because it's the absurdity, how it ends.
I know.
But this is a scary time that this is even being talked about. Like this, I think, and again, this is my opinion, but when I look at a lot of these, especially the laws about not talking to your parents and teachers don't have to tell your parents or counsel, I think that was protecting a different group. I don't think it was protecting the children. I feel like it protects the bad actors, because how are those conversations even happening? How are you going from talking about, let's say, math to how you feel about your body? Like, how are those conversations happening?
What's that transition?
Yes, exactly. And then it's protecting.
I'm glad you brought up algebra. Have we talked about your private parts?
Do you see where, who is it really protecting?
What's the segue?
Exactly.
Like this one. How come you shave the mustache but keep everything else?
Actually, I'm glad that you asked that. I spent 3 summers in an Amish training facility in Pennsylvania. No, here's the deal.
No, the Amish would
do a chin strap.
Yeah,
Listen,
they'd go lower on the beard.
My DNA is unique.
Oh.
And while this part of my beard is coarse and soft.
To his goatee.
It's a beard. I don't have a goatee.
No, you're pointing to the goatee portion of your beard.
Yes, the entire beard.
Is coarse.
But genetically, there is a problem with my big upper lip and my coarse hair. It stabs it and it drives me crazy. So there's also, I'm having some racist problems within myself physically to where the hair and the lip just don't work. I think the hair is more Nordic or on the Scottish side. And my lips, of course, are African. It's a huge fight.
I think I'm watching your wife in the background, not amused by our conversation.
Oh, if we only had a third microphone, I would. Oh.
I can't do the mustache either. You want to know why?
Why?
Because I have the reverse.
You're mixed too?
Because I'm mixed race. No, because I have the reverse Hitler not on purpose. Do you know what the reverse Hitler is?
Yeah, it's word. But you could be a great country western music singer.
Here,
you got to do the bars then.
Mine's separated in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, color-wise, although I have the wisdom gray, my mustache was always blonde. It didn't match the rest. So it was just a weird, like a calico cat.
Yeah, we've hung out a lot, and I just looked over at you for a moment there, and I said, I want to know why he chooses.
I feel that I'm so happy that we could talk about this live.
Me too. I'm really wish your wife wasn't watching us right now. I feel very judged.
Oh, well, plus, before you got here, I was burying you. No, hey, I was bringing up the devil. Oh. No. I'm always, you weren't waiting. I'm always early. That's something that I'm, especially, for what the work you're doing and the things you're doing, man, my hat's off to you.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Just,
Pete. Appreciate it.
And I love the fact that we can stick by our friends in times like this. Pete is a great man. He's a wonderful family, and he's been wonderful to me my entire career here. He gave me an opportunity to be at the Patriot Awards. He gave me an opportunity to interview him several times. He's a stand-up, and he's a great guy.
It surprises me not in the least to hear that from you. Tyrus, you and I have talked about this, but I don't know, and I don't mean to suggest somebody who might not fall in one of these categories, including women, is somehow this is inapplicable. But, I spent all those years at ESPN, right? I have not lived the life that for some reason social media or others might have projected on me. I didn't grow up in a lily-white suburb with everybody the same color and the same socioeconomic standard. I'm from a small town in Texas where everyone is together. Bottom line, everyone. Poor, rich, black, white, everyone is together. And throughout my career, I've sought out different kinds of diversity because I find it interesting. That's the bottom line truth. And so at ESPN, when I join ESPN and these athletes walk in and they're black and I'm a skinny white guy and I've got a radio show and they sit down at my microphone, we didn't have any trouble hitting it off. And do you know why? Because we're dudes.
Yeah.
Because we're dudes. And there's a connective tissue that applies regardless. And maybe it even applies sometimes when it's a woman. Maybe women can be dudes. I don't know. But I just know when I sit down with a guy and I connect, I know that I had that with Pete. I know that I have that with you. And so when I'm doing what I'm doing for Pete is I'm simply telling the truth about someone that I know well, and I think that's what men do.
I think the other thing is that
I think I'm doing what men should do.
Everyone, you should do. Another thing is that Pete served this country.
Yeah.
He's seen things we can't possibly imagine. Coming back home, I bet there was an adjustment. I bet there was a tough period. I bet we saw his mother had to challenge him, and he changed his life. I want leaders like that.
Yeah.
I myself, who I was 15, 20 years ago, couldn't work at a place like this. I had more, and I've owned my mistakes, I've owned the things I've done wrong in my life, but that's the fabric of what makes leaders.
Absolutely.
You look at anybody, and Pete made mistakes, 1,000%. But look at who he is now.
Yes.
Look at the family man he is now. And you know what? If someone's struggling, who better than Pete that could sit down and say, I've been there, and best yet, here's how I got out of there, and here's the man I am today. So that's why I will stand next to him, shoulder to shoulder, through this whole process. And I cannot wait when he does get through the Senate and all that stuff, and he's going to be phenomenal at his job. Because he is time-tested, and he is what America is all about. Redemption is a wonderful thing. I'm a living proof of that, and so is Pete.
Just put one more button on that. We're not born or come out of the womb or hit the ground running as perfect beings.
We're not.
And I know Fox Nation has this thing up by Martin Scorsese talking about the Saints.
Yes.
You want to talk about some real dirtballs?
Yeah.
How about the Saints?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Some guys that have really made mistakes, flawed characters who find their way to salvation, redemption, and ultimately, to your point, leadership.
Here's the thing. Anybody with a clean record who's never done anything wrong, I really look at that person very closely. You know what? Everybody's friend is nobody's friend.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
That's why I come through the freezing rain and snow 4 hours early to work just to talk to you.
Are you staying at a hotel, or did you come really this early from New Jersey?
No, we're staying at a hotel.
Good.
I came the night before.
Good. Me too.
It's like it's
So
a
you're
5
20 minutes away
today, and then presenting tonight. So I'm excited. It's a great honor, and we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Well, I really appreciate you doing that, for coming here early, and I appreciate you bringing up that subject as well. I like seeing you in person.
Yeah, it's always fun.
You've willingly done the Will Cain show, which I appreciate.
Oh, it's a great honor.
But now I know what it's like to have you in person. I want to do it more.
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, man.
Happy holidays to you and your family.
You too. I'm going to go there and talk to your wife as soon as I'm done.
Yeah, you do that, because I'm going to go
see
hide.
what she has to say. All right, Tyrus. Catch him on the 5 here, coming up in just a little bit on the Fox News channel. All right, that's going to do it for us today, live from the Patriot Awards. You can check it out on Fox Nation, but I hope to see you back here again every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. You'll subscribe to us, I hope, on Spotify and Apple if you want the audio version of The Will Cain Show. But if you want to catch us on YouTube or Facebook, which I know so many of you are right now, count on it. 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Hit subscribe. We're blowing and going, and we want to welcome you into The Will Show. That's going to do it for me today. I will see you again next time on The Will Cain Show.